Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Zero Visibility. On this special Thursday afternoon, I am Statistical Zeros, and this is a very special episode, like I said, because we got none other than Pete Simeti here.
Hey, what's up?
Welcome,
I
Pete.
got my own title card. That's incredible.
You did, with all the
Man,
magic
thank
of
you.
a free video software update.
I don't even give myself a title card on my own channel.
Well, that's shameful, man.
Well, thanks for making me feel welcome.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so first thing I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about what you got going on with Alterna Comics. And for you guys that are watching or maybe replay that haven't actually seen Alterna Comics, all the links are in the description. We got the actual campaign. We got Pete's channel, Alterna's channel. We got the summer campaign and the King Cryptid campaign.
Wow.
All ready to go, right?
Awesome.
So,
Thank you.
from what I understand, last couple of days at least, Indiegogo has been having some problems staying up.
I guess so. I mean, hopefully it's just a very awkward site update right now, but
Well, it's possible.
who knows?
Hey, Revan, welcome to the chat.
I probably broke it. I put the full moon special up, and then all of a sudden, that's it. Something
dear
isn't
goodness.
quite right when I go to the page right now, and every other page for Indiegogo, too.
Luckily, I've had these things up for like a little while, so hopefully everything you need is there.
All right.
All right,
Is it there? Yes, it is there. Wow, you got it just in time.
just yeah. All right, so you passed 30,000. Oh, it's 852 backers.
Yeah.
What I remember hearing, that's a record now for Alternative.
It's a record. Every backer that we get is a new record. So
That's
A53,
awesome.
it's a new record. A54, it's a new record. It's great.
That's a way to look at it. Okay, so is the full moon special? Yeah, it is right here.
Yeah, I'm
There it
glad
is.
we're making it 48 hours then, considering there's some problem with Indiegogo right now. But
yeah.
it's going to be up for 2 days. Usually it's just 24 hours. This full moon, it's a super moon. It's the last super moon of the year. So I think there's been some discussion as to whether or not it's truly the 11th or the night of the 12th. And I'm seeing all over the place people saying both. So I just figured we'll just do this full moon special for 2 full days.
Why not?
Yeah, nice Velcro patch.
Looks now. Is this
Beautiful.
designed to put on your hats?
Yeah, it's gonna perfectly fit him. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, nice. That's a great
yeah,
idea. I never would have thought
yeah.
of that.
Yeah, I love the fact that and Clint Stoker had brought it up on a stream one time. I had seen the hats every now and then at places and things like that, but I wasn't quite sure how we could utilize it. And then it just hit me that, well, we do Velcro patches. Why not just size them to fit perfectly?
Right.
And so now we're gonna have that. And I got all 3 hats here just to try them out myself. There's a gray one, a black one, and a navy blue one, and they are some of the most comfortable hats I've ever had. And they fit the 3x2 patch perfectly. So we have 2 patches available on the summer campaign. The hats are on the summer campaign too, and then this is gonna be on this campaign, of course. But
Really?
yeah.
More comfortable than the CMYK baseball hat?
Oh man, yeah, these are great. These are great. The CMYK one, it's comfortable material, but the fit, I had a little bit of issue with it. Some people did as well, and that's what I find is such a pain in the butt making these hats. Is that sometimes they fit great, sometimes they really kind of don't. Sometimes the embroidery is awesome and comes out great. Sometimes it kind of doesn't. It's very hit or miss, and you have to order a whole bunch of them.
Right.
And then, sometimes people really love the hats and they're great, and then sometimes it just doesn't work out. These, I really don't foresee many problems with these at all because they'll fit larger heads too. The way that the strap is on it, it's a Velcro strap too. It's really, really comfortable. Super, super comfortable. Very breathable. It's not a mesh hat,
Okay.
but it's still a very nice, breathable, 100% cotton hat.
Because I've got the CMYK and the white mesh one with the red bill, and the CMYK is my go-to. I like that hat.
Yeah, it's a good hat. It just for slightly, I'm on like the cusp of almost a big head, and for people with like slightly bigger heads than mine, it turns into that's not really gonna fit that great. But we've been out of that one for a while,
Right.
so Yeah, I love the idea too of being able to have people just kind of switch up their hats on the fly in terms of the design, as opposed to having like 25 alternate hats, let's say.
Oh yeah.
Just go to, your one of three or whatever it is and switch up the Velcro patch and go for it. Because we're going to have more of these.
Many different hats.
Exactly.
Alterna. So that's the new thing. Has it done okay so far? Or did it just go up?
It probably would be better if Indiegogo wasn't down right now. I think one or two sold before it hit.
Because I know it was down before and then it came back up.
Yeah, because the last that I had checked, the campaign was like just a few bucks away from 30,200. So I think we had a couple people back, but that was it. Because I even put out an update. That's not getting out there. Like everything with Indiegogo right now is just kaput for the time being. So don't refresh.
No. You talked about changing it from 1 through 4 to 1 through 5 on this campaign?
No. So this is going to be 1 through 4 still.
Right.
But on the next campaign, usually with these campaigns, I'm trying to do 4, maybe 5 issues.
Right.
And on next year's campaign, I was going to do 5 to 8, which would have been 4 issues.
Yep.
But I've got a story arc that's going to be issues 10 to 12. And I figure instead of having like issue number 9 and then 10 to 12, because issue 9 would be a standalone story. Again, most of the stories in King Cryptid are relatively standalone, even though there's a thread that connects them all, just like the comics were for decades. But then 10 to 12 would be a story arc, and it would be a story arc called Killer King, which would be illustrated too by Keir Covington. Now, this is what I'm talking about for 2024.
Right.
Instead, I decided for 2023, we'll do issues 5 to 9. And then we'll have 10 to 12 plus issue 13. Issue 13 was kind of going to be like a fun catch-up issue where we treat it like a documentary about King Cryptid.
Sure.
So I figured that would kind of be better to do it that way instead of 9 to 12 and then 13 and then the new issues. It would kind of be a nice story arc that touches a little bit upon some of his origin. Sure. And then we have a nice, because the whole 2024 will be kind of like a nice, if you missed the prior 2 campaigns, you could still get all the back issues on that campaign,
right? But
it would be a real nice jumping on point for everybody in terms of the story arc and then in terms of issue 13. So kind of like planning it out.
Filler issues, like they just keep in the trunk for when an artist was late or something like that.
Yeah, and it's not one of those issues that's going to be like a clip show issue, but it's going to be an issue that we kind of recap a little bit about it because of the fact that it is going to be treated kind of like a documentary. What happens is that there's a very public rescue that a video goes viral, and King Cryptid is seen in the daylight and by people that have obviously everyone has a camera in some way, shape, or form nowadays. Right. So he becomes this celebrity figure more or less within the White Mountain region, and they do this documentary on him, and this is basically the issue, and that would be issue number 13. There's a couple of different fun twists in the issue, and we keep it lighthearted for the most part. But I felt that would be a good place instead to put that. So 5 to 9 will be on the campaign for 2023 for next year. So that'll be 5 issues.
I think from the previews, the thing I like most about this is that it seems more like, how do I put this? Like a late 80s, early 90s kind of cartoon, how they were actual stories, and you could watch any single one and get the gist of everything, but then it stands on its own as a classic versus now where it's like 20 minutes of non sequitur jokes where there's no real story, and then it's forgotten as soon as you're done watching it. It ends up in the bargain bin a couple months after it comes out.
Yeah,
nobody wants it.
A lot of shows nowadays, it's like disposable fast food entertainment, and you get nothing from it. It doesn't sustain you. And it's very empty. You're just digesting empty mind calories as opposed to actually having a good solid half hour to an hour meal. And you go, oh, wow, and that sticks with you. And if anything, sometimes those stories really could have actually inspired you in some way or really affected you. And I aim to do that with these stories. I always aim to kind of have stories like that at Alterna, but for my own in particular, I want King Cryptid to always hit an emotional note with people. So it's not just this empty monster of the week kind of a thing, but that there's actually solid story structure here. There's characterizations. There's a lot of stuff that happens. Stuff that people can enjoy. Yeah, Michael, evergreen, exactly. Stuff that people can enjoy today, but they can also enjoy it 10, 20, 50, 100 years from now and pick it up and enjoy it and read it and go and maybe get something out of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you look at like some of the shows that keep on getting re-released, like Batman or Ghostbusters or Thundercats or GI Joe or Transformers. They don't really, most of them don't really focus on the stuff that's going on the time. They've got their own stuff going on in the world, their own politics, so it'll work at any time, at any place.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I mean, story structure wise, that's what I always thought was so.
That should be the goal.
Yeah, I just thought it was so strange about comics because of the fact that the TV shows usually got it really right. I thought with the episodic nature of stuff, they didn't get too complex in terms of bringing in all kinds of different weird story elements and things like that would kind of clutter up the heart of the story. So I got a lot of inspiration out of Batman the Animated Series, Thundercats, Real Ghostbusters. I mean, you kind of name it in terms of episodic storytelling for television. I got really inspired by that in terms of how to tell these stories. Because comic book wise, we see a lot of these things that, especially from the big two, where the universe started becoming way more important towards like the mid 90s to the and beyond, actually. It started becoming this weird, every single thing has to interconnect at all possible times, but then they don't. They also don't, because editorial doesn't really keep track of, well, that character's here, this character's there, why are they showing up here when they're that month over there? So they kind of become their own worst enemy. I think we're seeing that too right now with the MCU and things like that.
Yeah.
But they overly complicate it. Instead of having guest stars in an issue and keeping it kind of fun and seeing what happens with the personalities it makes, you start hinging very key plot points upon these characters that don't really belong in that series. And then before you know it, the star of the series really isn't the star of the series anymore. So King Crypt is not going to have anything like that. We're going to have a lot of different guest stars, side characters, etc.
Right.
But there's no offshoot series. Everything is within the realm of King Cryptid. We're going to have editor's notes that mention certain plot points where you go back and you can pick up, an issue here or there if you missed them and you want to learn more about what they're discussing at this point in time. But it's to me, it's everything I've ever loved about comics in terms of the way I got into them and the stories. And it had always a larger than life feel, but it also didn't have anything that felt like it was out of my grasp of understanding. Nowadays, I couldn't imagine kids getting into multiple comics and keeping up with it.
Oh, no.
There's no way.
I mean, I think when I got in as a kid, it was like, you had like, you had Batman and they'd have like 2 to 3 issue story arcs. Then they started to kind of go 1 and 3 at Batman and 2 and 4 at Detective. And then
it was like 25 issue events.
Yep. Then the
entire line
tying them together in trades, and they realized, oh, that's money.
Yeah. And then they started writing towards the trade all the time instead. Yeah. And that's the thing, even with this, I've said it before, where I'm not touching a trade, an omnibus, whatever, of King Cryptid until we at least have 10 years of stories out. So if anyone's trade waiting, you're going to be waiting for a decade.
Well, I mean, they used to do, you look at like the old Showcase Presents, the old Marvel Presents or whatever like that, or even EC Comics, they get 8 pages. And you got to pack it with as much as you could in that 8 pages, and then maybe the story would carry for 4 of those issues, and then they could do something with it later. But they were 8-page stories, and you had to have a lot of. There was more dialogue than there were. It was like a Chris Claremont issue. There's more dialogue than there was pictures sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the thing is knowing when to have that give and take. So if you have imagery that really the picture's worth 1,000 words, don't put the 1,000 words plus the picture, that kind of a thing. But then also you'll have some moments where you could actually have a paragraph or so in there, and it expounds upon what's occurring, and that feels and seems right. So you have to find that balance and work it in there. But there's a lot of stuff with King Cryptid where I'm going to have, and these are finished 100%. These are going to be published pages too. I like doing that on a campaign. I don't want to give anybody just like a artwork that's finished, and then they don't know what the writing is going to look like. They don't know what the lettering is going to look like. So all of a sudden, and this has happened to me on campaigns before, so I don't back anything anymore unless I actually see finished pages. I don't want anybody going in there, and then they see that, and then all of a sudden the lettering is cluttering up vital moments.
Yeah.
It's too much. It's too little. The writing is horrible. Like all these other things that all of a sudden when you get that as a backer and you thought, wow, the art that's beautiful, and then it comes in and you're like, holy cow, they ruined it with the writing and the lettering. So I
Right.
want people to actually see this is what you're getting. These are examples of pages that you're going to see them actually printed in those issues.
Well, this is a great example here. Like you got the lettering kind of leads you through the page like it should, and then there's enough lettering here that it would take about as long to read this page as it would for like 5-6 of the say your favorite DC or Marvel, if you have that, or like the last 10 years or whatever like that. Because I notice sometimes with Batman, you'll have like 3-word balloons on the page.
Oh goodness, yeah.
Maybe like a sentence each.
And they just repeat the same idea the entire time. It's like, hey cat, hey bat, yeah bat, hey cat, yep bat, okay, yep, uh-huh. It's like, what are you doing?
Gang, it's gone again.
Yeah, every single panel, every single page is absolutely vital and essential to the story, but every panel within each page, you only get so many, and you should make the most out of it. And when these writers out there that are doing that, and these editors that let them get away with murder, I just don't understand it at all.
Absolutely. So Raven Saber says his wallet.
Yeah, there you go.
And Dr. Crow says, afternoon, Stat and Pete. I just finished my rough of a comic script. Now begin editing, looking for an artist. Once that's done, I'm going to submit to Alterna. Well, hey, good luck on that. I hope you get your ducks in a row, man.
Yeah.
Or your crows in a row. Anyway. So yeah, I think we've seen this a few times. This is kind of cool.
The collector case, the spine
case
on it, yeah.
Because you did that with the Alterna books. How many campaigns? The first big campaign that you did on Indiegogo, you did that with the Alterna books, I think.
Yeah, with the collector cases for the Alterna campaign, where you can kind of swap the inserts, and we have those here too. But these are because it's actually my property, where Alterna is 100% creator owned. I can't run around and make collector cases and things like that without the express written approval of those creators, and then we work it out, almost like a licensing deal.
Mm-hmm.
So with this, I figured let me kind of be the guinea pig for all these kinds of things that are very tailored and specific to the character and the comic. So I thought I'll make my own collector case thing for the first time and see how it works. And I wanted to make 5 because I want to have one for each campaign. And I thought 5 was a good enough number to contain most of the series if people wanted to do that. So it kind of creates this box set image overall when they have all 5 cases when everything's said and done.
This is a great idea for the cards. I haven't seen it. Everybody talks about how great it is to draw on like brown or like toned gray paper.
Yeah.
But you never ever see it. So this is kind of cool to see. It gives like an older kind of parchment kind of look to it.
Yeah, when it was an option with the same kind of thickness, it's an 18-point cardstock, and when this was an option, I thought I have to do it on the brown, because especially with the aesthetic of King Cryptid, where it's this woodsy, white mountain forest kind of aesthetic, the character, even though he's like a warm gray, you could still do very cool things tonally, and I love it when you have that tone that's in there, and then you can do the highlights and things like that, and really make images pop.
So let me ask you this: What's it like living in a world as an entertainer where even the trailer is too much information? That's spoiler alert right there. You can't show anything. You can just give the premise and the trailer.
It's funny because it's too much and too little at the same time, and then it's also full of misinformation. So like you'll go into something, you see the trailer, you're like, oh, that's awesome, it looks pretty good, and then you see the movie and you're like, tonally that is not what they represented in that trailer.
Are you experiencing a lot of that when you're talking about King Cryptid and people are like, whoa, you're giving away the cow with the farm here?
Sometimes some people are saying, hey, don't talk too much about it. But I'm thinking like, man, you guys have no idea how much more is in the issues. I think it's people that are used to modern comics, where if they hear me talking about certain things, they're thinking like, that's the entire story. What are you doing here, Pete? And I'm thinking like, that's like probably 15% of the story you're going to read. So
his name is King Spoilers, jeez.
It's so funny to me, but I think any of those people that feel like I've been giving maybe sometimes too much away, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised when they realize they put that issue down and they go, oh, he actually kind of didn't give away a whole lot to what they discussed and what happened in the particular issue.
Right. Well, I'm excited for it. I have been excited for it. I will be excited for it. And so when this is coming out, when is this releasing?
This I'm gonna start. I'm gonna send this to the printer around like early November, and then it'll probably get in by the end of November or so, and then I'm gonna start fulfillment, and then everything with fulfillment should be done around February, March 2023. But people are gonna be getting their stuff over the course of December, January, February.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait either. I can't wait till people get this and see what they think of it.
Even though it means like ridiculous labor on your part.
Yeah, none of that matters to me. If anything, I find that
Awesome.
that fulfillment it's so relaxing. It's far more relaxing to me than doing digital computer work all day long, and that stuff to me is mind numbing.
Get
The
yourself a big stack of DVDs.
Yeah, the fulfillment I put on, I watch something, I have something on, whatever it may be, either a show or a movie or whatever, and just go through a marathon of it, and then just kind of have my list, because I kind of assembly line everything, and I have my list of who gets what. I'll print out labels in advance and kind of write shorthand what goes where, and then I just kind of fulfill, and I'll have the computer off, which is amazing. And not have to look at anything on the computer, not have to look at social media for hours on end. It's a beautiful thing. It's almost like it's 1998 again. So getting to do that, it's very relaxing, and that's probably very strange for people to hear. The fulfillment part of it is the part I look forward to. But I just picture myself as like one of Santa's elves or something, and I'm shipping out packages to boys and girls out there.
Well, I think it's nice to be able to see where you came. There's so many jobs you just spend all your time trying to stay at square one and not move backwards. But with something like that, I could see it where like I had a pile of stuff that wasn't done. Now I'm looking at a pile of stuff that is done. It's a good day. I got something done today.
Yeah. Every single package that gets out there, I'm like, I hope they really enjoy this. I hope that they're digging it, and it's a nice feeling. It's like it's almost like Christmas for me too, because I get to have that anticipation of are they going to enjoy it? It's not quite giving a gift necessarily, but it's still that same feeling of you're sending out something to someone that they're not 100% really sure of what it really is. So it's not an item that they've just I don't know. It's not a toaster or something where they're just going to make toast. This is a story. These are different things that they're going to actually see and hold for the first time. So there is like this anticipation factor. It's like a gift giving kind of experience. So I do enjoy it.
That's easy going, just like the Alterna streams. I don't think I'm trying to think in the two and a half years I've seen Alterna, if there's been much major drama, and I really don't think I can't imagine it. Not from your group.
Well,
super easy going.
Well, yeah. I mean, and not a lot of, I guess not anymore. Not a lot of like inward type stuff. That infighting kind of thing. It's not always wine and roses because everybody takes everything very seriously. Everybody's passionate about it.
Yeah.
So sometimes there will be I even hate to use the word argument, but it's more just someone has this idea, someone has this other idea, and you're kind of trying to meet in the middle. But it's not anything that is as bad as it was, I'd say, around 2018, 2017,
Sure.
in terms of some of the stuff that was there with some of the people that were there. And that's honestly, as bad as some of those times were, that is the bright side of that sort of stuff, is that you are better off kind of being gone of those people that are in your life.
Oh, yeah.
That are kind of, they're not really there. You're not really on the same page. So once they're gone, even though it seems like, man, I can't believe that, and it feels like a betrayal, and it feels hurt to know some of these people for 10 years or so, you're like, well, it's I guess it's not really a loss. It's more of a gain because of the fact that I kind of never really had them here to begin with. It's almost like being in a bad relationship, but you're not aware it's bad until the end, when you're like, oh no, that was kind of a weird abusive relationship that I was stuck in for a time. So it kind of feels like that, in terms of you're out there, you're trying to help, you're in the trenches with these guys, and then when the shit hits the fan, it just turns into, oh, okay, I guess that's how it's been really the whole time, and I just never really saw it. And it's better to be gone with people like that from your life.
Oh yeah, well, for me, every alternate creator or their channel rather that I discovered honestly gets me more excited about comics, because there are some days you get on Twitter and everybody's screaming about, I don't know, She-Hulk or something that happened from some creator and some big creator, and they're all yelling about how stupid it is. And then I go and I see the Alterna stuff, and you guys are just talking about your characters and your comics. I get on, there's laughter. You look at like Frankie Washington is like encouragement personified.
Oh, I love Frankie.
I know, he's great. And Rob gets so dang excited about just drawing.
Yeah.
And Clint just super excited to get his books out and make more of them and kind of contribute to that. It is really refreshing to see, because I'm just, you wait for that heartbreaking day where it's like everyone at Alterna hates each other, and now they're warring. But I don't think it's ever going to come.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to. I hate saying never say never on stuff like that.
Wow.
Because I've seen so much over 16 years, but it is a good group of creators, and and even if we have to part ways, I don't foresee, I don't hope anyway, that it'd be some kind of bad parting of ways. You know,
I kind of feel like it would be like I need a break.
Yeah,
like, you know, like
sometimes the door's still open, kind of a thing.
Well, it's a grind. That's, people don't realize how hard comics are to make because the end result looks so simple.
Yeah, you know, and it looks so effortless. The better you get at it, the more effortless it looks, but the harder it is to attain that effortlessness. So it's interesting with any kind of creative field how that kind of ends up coming across. But at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of good personalities here at Alterna, and these are good, hardworking guys, and they're really just doing their best in terms of making stories that entertain people and getting out there and just making sure that the readers, the stories, all that stuff comes first.
All incredibly respectful too. I don't think I've heard a bad thing from any of them towards readers.
Oh yeah, they're always great with the readers, and I don't know if that, it's so strange. I don't know if it's one of those things where they're seeing how I interact, or I'm just actually lucky enough to pick talented people who are also so without that level of ego, where they're, you know, kind of gonna pick a fight with a reader who maybe wasn't as happy with an issue or a character or whatever it may be, you know, even though I don't think I've ever really seen much of that, especially from the past 3 years or so. I don't think I've seen too much of any of that in terms of criticism about the way a story was going or anything like that. I see a lot of people really loving these stories, these characters, same things that you've been saying, where it feels like a breath of fresh air. Mm-hmm. And if anything, I find that so funny, because I think all we're doing is we're kind of tapping into what made a lot of comics great for so long, as opposed to doing the thing nowadays where everything seems about trying to upset the reader as much as possible.
Little spite.
Yeah, and not upset them in terms of you told a really good story and you had this twist ending that occurred, and it, you know, just letting it play out. Like if I was helming the ship at Marvel when they did the whole Captain America Hydra thing, mm-hmm. I would have just been like, just tell everybody, look, you know, we appreciate you reading. We hope you read the rest of it. We think you're going to really, you know, enjoy what's to come. Mm-hmm. And that's that. There's no reason to argue with people. These people feel a certain way about these characters, and you want them to feel that way. You want people to feel like, oh my lord, what did they just do to one of my favorite characters? You know, and at the same time, by then engaging and saying, hey, we get it. You know, we just hope that you stick with us. We think you'll enjoy your time. By just keeping that level of it, you'll get someone that reads through it at least. And hopefully you do have a satisfying ending, because of course it's going to go to the status quo. But on that kind of a thing, it's very obvious that a lot of these companies, there's nobody there actually having any sense of leadership with stuff. So it's sad to see certain things like that play out, because I think a lot of us, myself included, grew up as big fans and loving these kinds of characters and these stories. But I think we did because it was a different mentality at that point in time among the creators, among the leadership. It's not there today, and it's kind of tough. To me, it reminds me of, if you've ever you grew up in your childhood home and now you're then an adult and you want to visit it, and the person in the home, it's not recognizable anymore, you know.
Kind of like a Grosse Point Blank situation.
Yeah, your room is not your room. The property is very different. Maybe they even leveled it, and you're like, it was here. How is it not here? There's a little remnants of what you recognize, maybe a notch you put in the wall somewhere or whatever it is, but for the most part, it's not what you grew up in, it's not what you knew, it's not what you loved, and you go back and you revisit that house, and you have to accept it's not your house anymore. Someone
Right.
else lives there, and I feel it's a lot like that nowadays with kind of coming to that. It's almost like a grief counseling situation is needed for a lot of the fans nowadays because of what they've done. They literally have killed a lot of these characters, these beings that emotionally we've been invested in and we grew up with and loved, and we're sometimes our only friends, and it feels sad to say that, but it's very true. For a
Yeah.
lot of people, these were your friends. It reminds me of that song Radio Gaga by Queen.
Oh, right.
So these were your friends when times were tough and things got lonely, and you were like, okay, I can always depend upon these characters. So then when you see them put through the ringer, when you see them change to the point of being unrecognizable, you feel like, wow, what's happened? But it's almost like you got to come to terms with it, that someone else lives in that house now.
Well, I think that's also like that editor mentality where they're just kind of babysitting and slumming in comics until they can get up to movies or something like that. It's like, who cares? I mean, it's just a fictional character. Why are you
Yeah,
getting
it's just
so upset?
it's a revolving door of people that don't care about it the same way that you do. And it's sad that it's that point, but that's kind of just the nature of larger corporations, and the larger and larger these kinds of companies got, the more corporate they got, and the more uncaring and cold they got. And that's kind of the name of the game when it comes to that. I think that's why people are starting to shift so much towards the indie kind of stuff, because it is straight from the source. It's straight from the creator. It's like getting in there in 1962 and everything you read's from Kirby and Lee. It's like, wow, it's right from the source. It's very official. It feels like something new and exciting and edgy and visionary, and it's nothing like that when you get decades removed from those types of people that are coming in there, that were kind of creating this thing from their heart and their mind and a little piece of their soul. These are people who are coming in and they're kind of the cover band. and that's in the sometimes the best case scenario. In other scenarios, it's the person who just comes in, strums a few notes, and then takes off. So it really is it is interesting to see the industry of comics, especially in terms of American comics, where so much of it's dominated by two larger companies, and that are now subsidiaries of even larger companies. So I think people are really gravitating towards indie because it does truly give you that all new, all different kind of thing that one of those companies likes to throw around every now and then. Finding indie comics, especially nowadays where the playing field is starting to become level in terms of accessibility, that's just great. I mean, I look at Indiegogo and I look at that and I see a digital newsstand. It kind of gives me that same feeling when I'm on there and I'm browsing. It gives me the same feeling of when I went to the newsstand as a kid, and you see all the different issues and all the art and everything else. And the only difference is you got to be kind of more patient. If we can end up speeding up the process, I think it would be unstoppable in terms of being able to do it this way. But things take time, and I get it that some creators you need those funds before you can make the whole project. But I think all it takes is time. Give it 5 or so more years, I think we're going to see a total sea change in the way the industry is and the way that readers are used to getting their comics.
I think that's got to be a challenge or a handicap for the people submitting to Alterna now, with just if they're using today's comics as an example of, oh, this is what a comic is.
Definitely don't.
Yeah,
Unless
exactly.
it's an Alterna comic from like the past, 1 or 2 years when you're submitting. Don't use any kind of big... and I've seen that. I've seen people use that as the standard, and I could tell. From even just stylistic choices like the lettering. Sometimes it'll have those weird squiggly, like spaghetti strand tails that just like go everywhere. And I'm like, what is this crap? why are you ruining the art with your spaghetti squiggly letter strand that goes everywhere, just snaking around through the art? Like, how arrogant is this letterer that they think they should fill up this beautiful art with just this pointless tail that just goes everywhere? But it is. It's that level of people looking at them and they're thinking that that's the standard. They're the two biggest companies,
Right.
and I want to emulate what they're doing. But I always say that you should emulate instead what you truly really love. Look at the stuff that stands the test of time to you. Look at the stuff that you look at and you go, this is the thing that I come to all the time. This is the book that I really enjoy. This is a story I really enjoy. And look at that and really break it down and analyze, why do you enjoy this? What did they do here that really speaks to you? And once you can kind of quantify that, you really can put that into your own work as well without actually aping what's been done before.
Which is what would get you, well, possibly into the big two, because you got to look at that industry standard and what they're doing, and then try to conform to that versus running the other way with your style, trying to do something different.
Exactly. And if anything, we lose, for all the talk of diversity nowadays, which is supposedly hinged upon the individual, because you can't have diversity when it's a homogenized large group. For all of that talk of diversity, all we do see, though, is making sure that the square pegs fit in the circle holes. It's very strange. But in art, that never helps. In anything creative, it never helps for you to just conform to the group, especially a corporate group. So it's all about bringing your uniqueness combined with what works. And if you can quantify both and get both on the page, you have a winner.
Kind of like house style being the death of what you're doing. I don't want to draw like Jim Lee. I want to draw like me.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that you can tell a lot of these guys that everyone looks to as these visionaries, more or less. If they just spent time trying to look like who came before them, they wouldn't be seen as visionaries. They would just be seen as the copycat of whoever came before.
Pete says, would rather being on Alterna than DC or Marvel. Way cooler.
Oh, thank you, man.
I agree. Yeah, so what do we got? Oh, so we were looking at the campaign here. So when does this start fulfilling?
So this will start fulfilling probably around maybe mid to late September, and then probably about 2 weeks or so for fulfillment.
Okay, perfect. And of course, you got all the back issues here that you can put on.
Yeah, we have all the add-ons and everything. We have everything that's not a pre-order. We have that on alternacomics.com, but there are a couple items that we have that are just new through the campaign. So like the Velcro patch hats, those are new through the campaign. Anytime anybody backs one of these campaigns, when it's a new item in particular, we don't list that at all until fulfillment's done. So once fulfillment's done, then we put them on the website, and then people can order them on there.
Oh shoot! Excuse me. Speaking of the website.
Oh, there you go. You're just Johnny on the spot today.
Well, you know. Yeah, for those of you in replay land, and of course, I'm pretty sure most of you here in the chat are well versed in Alterna, anyways. But if you go to alternacomics.com, you can actually just go ahead and click the link to all of the campaigns, including Mighty Mascots and Keith Gleason, who's coming up, and King Cryptid right there, pre-orders, and then you can just find all kinds of comics. The Giants single issues, a few graphic novels that are left. Find out about the creators.
Yeah, we have their personal sites on there too. So sometimes they'll have signed issues or merchandise or whatever that they just do, and that'll be on their site too.
I'm not 100% sure if their power levels are listed on here yet, but
not yet. That would be a cool trading card kind of stretch goal bonus or something for us to do, is like one creator per campaign.
It reminds me of that card set that they did. It was all like creators. Did you ever see those?
What was that?
It was like a trading card set, and they were all creators. So you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I got Chuck Dixon. Oh yeah, I got."
I think I've seen that. I'm pretty sure I had like a Jim Salicrup or something from that set.
You guys can do that with like the really saturated colors, and somebody's got to have a mullet.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Rob Liefeld was there with a sword and no shirt on.
Wow. All right.
Blue Teddy narration says, honestly though, I never considered submitting my stuff to anyone before Alterna. I'm relatively young, so Marvel and DC don't mean all that much to me, but Alterna's got me excited.
Oh, thank you, Blue Teddy. And that's the thing. I think we're going to see that over the next 5 to 10 years or so. I think we're going to see a big change in the guard, and it's not necessarily It's not like it's the veterans prior to the big two, and then because that would kind of be the Image guys, and at least what's left. Most of them have kind of gone back, saying, "Can you please hire me, big two?"
That's alarming how many of them don't have work right now.
Good grief.
Legend.
But yeah, and they should kind of be the ones that are just out and about. We should have like 7 Stan Lees at this point, right? Every one of them should basically be that person, that ambassador of comics, and you can sort of kind of say Todd McFarlane is, but in a way he's kind of not. He's more into the toy aspect of it. So
cool
he's
toys.
not really an ambassador of comics necessarily. But it's tough to say that any of them at this point are, especially filling someone like Stan Lee's shoes, who nowadays probably most people would think of comics and they would think of him and probably think that he created DC as well. So, I mean, my parents certainly thought that he did, and they thought that he created everything because he was the only guy you really saw. It was always
the ambassador, yeah.
Yeah, it's always strange to me how much like DC didn't have their answer to.
Oh, you still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
I'm cutting out a little bit.
But it was weird, like DC couldn't come up with anyone who would kind of exude the same enthusiasm.
Well, it sure wasn't John
Stan.
Buscema. It is imperative that you get your pencils sharp and start drawing immediately.
That is the greatest. That is the greatest pairing. It's like good cop, bad cop.
Absolutely. I was watching that just the other day. It cracks me up every time he's sitting there like, "Okay, true believer, you're gonna want to write, and you're gonna want to create the grace. Just these dynamic characters. What you need to do first is learn the fundamentals."
It's like it's Uncle Lou down the street with a baseball bat and a pencil. He's like, "If you don't sharpen this, I'm gonna sharpen something else."
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's got to be how Sal got so fast. His brother's next to him. I need it faster now.
But I mean, that's oh my lord! I mean, these were giants. These were titans of the industry. These were everyone nowadays that runs around with such a weird ego. And I'm like, man, you're on the shoulders of giants, and you're like a tiny ant on the shoulder of giants.
Well,
like, show some respect.
I think that they can live with comfort knowing that even though they're not getting work right now, once they pass away, Marvel and DC will put out big compilations of their work.
Oh,
and
boy. Yeah.
and just to remember them as legends that they are, or were.
Yeah,
like Herb
yeah.
Trimpe.
Again, is what I find interesting is that there is that changing of the guard that's occurring, and I think it's from a lot of these indie creators. I think it's from a lot of them combined with the readers out there that know and remember what comics could be, what they were, the greatness that could be achieved through comic book storytelling. And they're seeing a lot of what's around today, not all of it, but a lot of it, and they're going, this isn't something that would even exist in the worst part of the 90s. This is horrible, and they look at that and they talk about it, and then they go and they try to find something else, and it's great when they're able to do that.
If anything, these guys that have big egos that have, sold a lot of books, I'm indebted to them a little, or the readers should be, because they're showing how important the readers are, because they strike it off on their own saying, hey, I'm a big name in DC, I'm going to do it. They go do their own crowdfunding and they get maybe $15,000, $13,000 because they're not really interacting with anybody. They're just trying to coast on their name. So it shows that just name and talent alone aren't necessarily going to help you out. You got to go and interact with the people that are buying your
And that's the thing that's so interesting, right? We see that occur, but yet at the same time, that's the go-to for the bigger companies, is that they look at that and they... At one point in time, Jim Lee wasn't a name, Todd McFarlane wasn't a name, John Romita wasn't a name, Stan and Jack, those weren't names. Those were just names that were there, but they weren't names that sold anything.
Just
the characters
timely afloat.
Yeah, the characters sold it, the stories sold it, the talent sold it, and it was more about, man, I don't know who you are, but goodness, I want to see more of what you have to offer. And it was more about that. That was the pull. That was the thing that made the name a name. And along the way, a lot of these companies kind of forgot about that kind of mindset of the actual talent that exists. But for the longest time, if not 16 years, Alternative's been around. So for at least 16 years, I've been hearing from a lot of corporate comics people about how the talent pool has dried up, and I'm looking around at Alternate, and I'm like, it dried up. That's interesting. And we're just one company with maybe 300 to 400 books under our belt. There's hundreds of companies out there with thousands of talented people who none of them are getting the time of day from the big two.
Well, I mean, I think it's also that they shifted from a proactive company plan to a reactive. Like, they're gonna wait for that guy to, like, somebody's got to take the first step, and when they do, oh, we're all over it. We're gonna do the same thing but better. Kind of like Nintendo makes the stuff, and then Sony and Xbox go, oh, we'll make it better.
Yeah, exactly. You know, they've said it time and time again, and it's been on, I think, honestly, some of their websites about the fact that once you've built a following and you've kind of proven yourself, then they'll come looking for you. And all I could think is, why on earth would anyone then say yes? And there's people who have. But if I just put in a ton of work to build my brand, to build my stories, to get out there, to become a name in my own right, why on earth would I want to then, to me, take a step back and go work for a corporation that's now going to tell me what to do and who to draw, who to write?
Oh, they go after people that don't know better. Like, they go on Tumblr and see people that are just like illustrators and say, you want to do a comic? Well, I never thought about it, but sounds cool. Great. You're hired.
Yeah, it's so sad.
Kind of like
and so
Winston in
weird.
Ghostbusters.
If there's a paycheck in it, I'll believe whatever you want, that kind of thing.
So Dr. Mass asks, any new creators on the horizon for Alterna? I know Fabrizio is awaiting his debut.
Yeah, it's Fabrizio at this point in time with Horace H. Hoover. That's going to be on the fall campaign, and he's got a lot planned for that. So he's got a 5-issue miniseries that's going to kind of be of short stories revolving around Horace Hoover and a bunch of the different characters in that universe, because every book at Alterna is a universe. And then he's going to have an ongoing series where it's more self-contained, every single issue, that kind of a thing. Very King Cryptid style in terms of storytelling. But the first 5 issues, that'll be a mini-series, and that'll kind of introduce readers to the characters, the world, the personalities therein of Horace H. Hoover. And honestly, I'm looking forward to that. I think that is one of those titles that is just, it speaks to the comic reader out there. They look at that and they see it and they go, this just looks like comic books. There's no other way to explain it. It just looks like something fun and unique and crazy, but familiar at the same time, but not exactly like ripping something off. It's just everything that's great about comics. That's what Horace H. Hoover reminds me of. And I can't wait, because Fabrizio is all in, and he absolutely loves that character, that universe he's creating, and I think the readers are going to love it too.
So I take it, since he's in, he didn't come to you and say, it's like David Orrick was Hellboy.
No. If anything, I could tell when he pitched it that he felt almost like, I don't know if I should just tell Pete how weird this is, because maybe it'd turn him off, But he pitched it, it's New York City's greatest space-time occult detective vacuum. He pitched it like that, and then he put what the story and the character kind of does within the first issue, and he didn't mention anything else. He didn't compare it to anything.
That's good.
And I went in there and I'm like, all right, that's an interesting pitch, and then I saw the art and I was blown away.
Well, I mean, it's nice to just listening to that pitch. You'd sit and think, okay, so it's what, like not really like Doctor Strange, and you're gonna sit and noodle on it. Like, it sounds kind of like. No, it doesn't really sound like that. It doesn't really, no.
Yeah, you could do the thing of being like, if you took Doctor Strange and Doctor Who with a little Sherlock Holmes with some madman and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? You could do this.
It's
just
exhausting.
To me, it's an exhausting.
Just take a look at it.
And it's still not correct, and so you're always better off just going forward and explaining what it is, and I'm glad that he did that. And then to see the art, it was great. To me, it reminds me a lot of Bernie Wrightson. And then the writing was great too, because he has, and I'm going to talk about this eventually one day on my show, or the Alterna channel, but I'm going to talk about writing characters and actually giving them a voice and making sure that they all sound unique. Because there's I don't know, an epidemic, a pandemic, whatever the highest form of it is in terms of, it's a pandemic across entertainment in terms of everyone sounds the friggin' same. And they all sound like the worst possible person they could sound like, which is a vapid airhead who's completely self-absorbed. It's crazy, and to read Horace H. Hoover when I was reading that too, I thought, okay, please let the writing pull it off, because it's a very quirky title. It's a very weird title. It could absolutely be written by someone who's then going to have the quirky, weird little, oh, hey, I'm so aware of everything, but I'm still so surprised. It could have that, and it doesn't at all. It's great. It's fantastic.
Well, writing, usually I like to take an actor and cast them, not so much to look, but to sound. So like Dustin Hoffman and Christopher Walken, Patrick Stewart, and Jim Brown aren't going to deliver their dialogue the same way. So you run it through there, and it's just like, well, how would Dustin Hoffman say this? How would Jim Brown say this? No, it doesn't sound right. Okay, this sounds right. You might need to learn a couple of new words to pad out certain like vocabularies, depending on where the character's from. But I mean, that certainly helps. Which is, it seems like that's a complaint I've heard for a long time from like, oh, now I've put his name out of my mind. Not Chris Claremont. Guy that did Ultimate Spider-Man.
Oh, Bendis.
Bendis, yeah. Everybody sounds pretty much the same.
Everyone sounds like Bendis and Joss Whedon. Which
is, I'm sure, goes back to the whole, like, I'm going to use current comics as my model for what's going on now. Bendis is a big dude, right? They made a big deal about him going to DC. I'm going to read his stuff and I'm going to learn from it.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and you get that kind of thing. And so you get this homogenization again, which is very strange to hear about in the world of touting diversity as something that's important. But meanwhile, they applaud these things that are all homogenized and the same. They're not taking it to them and taking them to task and being like, see, this is what we're talking about. See, there's no diversity here. There's no diversity, not just from, the skin deep kind of level of diversity, but deeper than that. The diversity of voice and thought and everything else, and personality, which is the most important kind of diversity. So these kind of things, when I was reading Horace H. Hoover, I was doing that. I was picturing certain actors in certain roles, and I was picturing kind of like a David Hyde Pierce for Horace Hoover. Yep. I was picturing like a Bob Hoskins for Max, and he has a couple other great characters and situations and stuff like that in there. And I was picturing all these voices and all these kinds of actors that could have portrayed them, and how they would have had these mannerisms. And I love reading books like that. I love that kind of thing where you can actually hear their voices as they're talking, and then you're reading them. I think that's kind of what makes sometimes the whole thought process of the movie is not as good as the book. And it's because in the book you've cast it all, whether they exist or they don't, and you hear the voices, you see sometimes what they look like if it's not a comic, and you interpret all these things visually in your own mind. And then when they turn it into a film, you're like, oh man, that's not how I thought it'd be at all. My
head canon was totally different.
Yeah, in your headcanon, you got like that voice, and the person is commanding, and they're authoritative, and and then they're on screen, they're like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And you're like, "That's not how I thought they'd sound." You get all these weird sort of things, but it's because in your mind you've kind of envisioned them to be a certain way. In comics, at least you can provide the visual, but as far as the voice, you should be able to provide the voice through the characterization. Like I remember still being very disappointed when they had cast Benedict Cumberbatch, and I thought, oh, he's got a good voice, he'd be great for Doctor Strange. And I know some people really love him, but then all of a sudden I'm like, why is he trying to sound like Robert Downey Jr.? It's very strange to me. I'm like, why don't you just let the dude talk? That would be like casting Ian McKellen for Gandalf, and you're like, well, can you do it and kind of sound more like, I don't know, more like Robin Williams or something? I just feel like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, Robin Williams is great, but I mean, this isn't the guy
we don't have for that. Yeah.
And why would you want to do that? It's very strange. But that's apparently, it goes back to that homogenization and that sameness of things.
Absolutely, something totally to keep in mind. Now, we're coming up on the hour.
Oh boy,
I know, right? Flew right by. So Peep says we got here. So Dr. Mass says. Horace H. Hoover looks amazing. I haven't seen like an incredible talk about it, but when I see it, it looks good. So we're not quite at the what do you call it? Advertising it out stage yet?
Yeah, not quite yet. I don't want to. I don't know. I want it to kind of really be like the big reveal. We'll be pushing that more on September 1st when the pre-launch page goes up for this the fall campaign.
Peep says yes. Same with animation. Everyone has the same mannerisms. all move in the same certain way. Oh, he's got to be talking about new cartoons.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because if you're talking about older ones, it reminds me of that Ghostbusters episode where they were like training in some new animators or something. The Sam Hain one.
Oh yeah.
Nobody moved to look the same from frame to frame in that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny too because people comment on certain things, but they go back to just really looking at the Hanna-Barbera kind of style with that sort of rotoscoping and everything, and then you get certain images and backgrounds and the way they run and stuff is like He-Man kind of ran like Shaggy. It's that, but it's like, guys, that's not the breadth of everything that existed. When you're looking at it nowadays, it really is. You can't tell most of these studios apart from each other.
No, they're all like, it's almost like the old Flash animation.
Yeah.
I blame, Rick and Morty and Adventure Time.
Yeah, and then at the time, when those things came out, it felt like, oh, that's kind of new, that's kind of cool. But then it turns into the entertainment industry is so creatively brain dead. These people at the top that are like, oh, that works, more of that. It's like in comics. Oh, Harley Quinn's working, more Harley Quinn. Deadpool's working, more Deadpool. Everything like Deadpool. Everything like Harley Quinn. Everything like Wolverine. Everything, you know what I mean? And it's just pedal to the metal, and it turns into, oh man, now you just ruined what made that thing so special and fun.
Wash it until there are holes in it.
Yeah.
Patch it up.
Right.
Okay, so what do you got going on next? Like, where, aside from like, of course, your channel and like again, all that stuff's in the description. Where are you going next?
Well, let's see. I mean, directly, I guess tomorrow night I have Eric Canetti on my channel.
Oh, cool.
So I'm looking forward to talking to him. He's so talented.
Oh yeah.
But as far as creatively goes, I mean, it's just about getting King Cryptid done. Most of the issues are done at this point. Half of issue number 1 is done, and then Christian has to color the rest of issue 4, but 2 and 3 are completely done. And then other than that, it's about just finishing up those issues, getting the summer campaign books to press, fulfilling that campaign, moving on to then the fall campaign. And I want to try to get a short box on every single alternate campaign. I want to really try to see if I can talk to these guys and do some licensing of their characters and do this kind of stuff where we sort of merchandise some of their things, but we keep it in-house in a way. And where Alternative's 100% creator owned, I got to make sure everyone's on the same page with the split and the rights of it and whatnot, and it wouldn't be any kind of an exclusive deal. It would be more about, let's just make something cool because a lot of the readers are really asking for it, and my hands are kind of tied. So hopefully they're about it. I know that a bunch of them are. I know a bunch of them are really excited to see about getting like a short box done. I would love to get one done of like Blood Realm, Wolf and Batsy, Horace Hoover would be such a cool short box too.
So those turned out really well then.
Yeah. The King Cryptid one, I think about 25 or so have sold, and that's going to stay on there for the remainder of that campaign. And then I'm probably going to print up either 50 to 100, depending on how many sell, and then we'll sell the rest through the Alterna site and then through other King Cryptid campaigns. That's the thing too. I have to really pace myself with King Cryptid stuff because there's going to be many campaigns. So while I have to pace myself with all of the different perks and stuff that I could offer, I also have to remember to print excess of some of them. So I'm going to have more collector cases, more books, obviously, and things like that, and do larger print runs and things like that for all of it. But it's just, to me, it's exciting getting to do King Cryptid and having my own series and being able to actually have something that's ongoing and just having this character and this world and having people respond to it the way that they have so far has been so great.
Well, I envy you a little bit, and I don't, because on one end, you're doing a great character and getting to do this great series. On the other end, you're going to have some great moments that won't come for like 4 years, and you can't tell us.
Yeah, it's true. I have to purposefully stop myself from coming up with stories, because as I'll be fleshing out certain stories, like I'm doing right now for 5 to 9, I'm fleshing them out from outline to then script form, or at least for a script form for.
Yep.
It makes me start thinking of other stories to write down, and I'm like, nope, just write down a sentence and walk away. You have already 100 different ideas you want to do. you already have the next 5 to 6 years worth of things outlined.
Just
You
kidding.
don't need to start torturing yourself with, well, in 2045.
You got like a little notebook to just write down the quick idea, and so you don't
Yeah,
forget.
yeah. Between that and then I have it on the computer, I have it on the phone. So just in case anything kind of strikes me, if I'm even at the grocery store, I'll write it down at the phone. But I have to purposefully sometimes just get out of that mindset. Don't think about it at all, because once the floodgates are open, that's it. I
Keep you
start
up at night?
thinking, yeah. I seriously, I'll get out of the shower. It'll be like 4 in the morning. I'm exhausted, and all of a sudden I'll have a King Cryptid idea, and I have to write it down as soon as I get out of the shower because I just thought about it when I was in the shower. It's very strange, you know. So I have to purposefully kind of numb my mind to don't think about that yet. It's not time. You don't need a story plot line for 2045.
No, that's when you know you got it, because I mean, there's so many people that are like, they get that first issue and they're like, oh, it's so like lush with things I can do, and then by issue 3 they're like, holy crap, I'm tired of these characters.
Well, because that's the crazy part is that
Yeah.
I'll come up with an issue. So on issue 9, there's Puckwudgies in the Huckamuck Swamp, and Puckwudgies are these little mischievous things. And Necro is basically this. It's a New England Cryptid Research Organization, and a lot of readers are going to discover what this organization is really all about. But even when you guys know what they're about, they're really not even about that. It's about something even crazier. But I can't get to what that's even about for probably like 10 to 12 years. So like that's the kind of torture I have set up for myself. That I can't even get to what certain things are.
That's horrible.
1 decade though, there's a lot of great stories to tell and things like that. But certain kind of elements will come in with the plot, and I'm thinking like, oh, that'll tie great with this type of thing later on, and I could do this, and I could. So mapping it out, it turns into, I look like the crazy person with the conspiracy theorist board with all the strings everywhere, and I'm like, no, it all makes sense though. Don't worry about it. But to think about it, thinking 20, 30, maybe even sometimes 40 years from now, in terms of the breadth of stories that I could tell, it's both exciting and also a little sad to me too, because I hope at the same time I'm able to actually tell all of these stories. So
Right.
We'll see. As long as the readers want the books, as long as they're here for it, I'm going to be making them.
Dr. Crow asked, do you ever look at your idea list and go, when did I come up with that?
Yes, yeah, because there's so many of them. I'm thinking like, oh, that's kind of cool. When did I think of that one? And I'm like, that must have been one of those real, I was exhausted out of my mind and then just wrote it down to just write it down. And then I'm revisiting it and I'm going, oh.
You ever try to figure out what the heck you were like trying to convey? Like you just wrote down like.
No, it's never like that. It's always it's always a full sentence or paragraph, but it's never just like a word or a couple words or a name. And I'm thinking, like, well, what is that? Yeah, it's never anything like that.
That's awesome. Well, looks like we've hit our hour.
All
Pete,
right.
thanks very much for coming on. It was awesome to talk to you in an extended, what would you say, like a call-in Wednesday?
I suppose so. Yeah, you don't usually have a guest on the show, right?
No, I've had Charlie and Wooly on, and then, yeah, it's just kind of like, my problem is I don't talk a whole lot about Marvel and DC, care less about them, or what's going on in like, entertainment stuff like that. So talk a little bit about comics or comic process or whatever like that. So if there's a guest that wants to come on, happily bring them on to talk. But it's that hunt to try to figure out what the heck I'm doing with this channel to make it a little bit more evergreen, so that it's not like some clickbait title that you watch that's irrelevant in 2 days, which I see a whole lot of that. And
yeah, that's true. Yeah, I wish there was
garbage.
I wish there was a lot more talk about, and I know a lot of artists and writers out there think, well, how many times can you talk about the creative process? But the thing is, every single person's process is different. So if you're into what they're doing, you're always going to be interested in what makes them tick.
Or if you're learning new stuff, you can pass it along. Hey, look what I learned. Check this out.
Yeah, so I'd love to see a lot of creators out there talking about stuff like that, or even just talking about.
Oh yeah. Eventually, if you just stay on one path, you're going to plateau.
Yeah.
You're going to stop learning. So you want to pull in different things to kind of keep it fresh. Sometimes even, heck, you probably know this. You're drawing and it's kind of seeming like it doesn't work. Switching up your pencil to something different can make all the difference.
Yeah.
Like a blue lead or something like that. And it's like, oh, hey, kind of like how that looks.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. You need to change your pace sometime.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much again. all of you, thank you for coming into the chat. If you haven't gotten all them great alternate, I just put an alternate order in today. So,
Oh, no way. Thank you, man.
Yeah, I got to get caught up on my Can't Kill Cade.
Oh, hell yeah.
But anyways, have a great day, Pete. Have a great day, chat. See you next time I see you.
All right, take it easy, everybody.
All right. Let me just grab some sort of an intro. I don't like to end them cold.